Welcome to Caveman Bricks, Builds, and More. I am the Caveman, and I am all alone. I have a whole bunch of sets that I want to build that I don't necessarily want to do with the kids, and I just have not been able to find a time to do one on my own. So I thought, why not today? Why not now? Let's go ahead and do one. So one of my favorite series of Lego, beyond just Harry Potter, obviously I love Harry Potter, is the architecture series. The problem I have with the architecture series is not a problem at all, but more of a personal problem. I haven't been to that many cool places that they're doing in the architecture series. But one place I have been that is probably one of my most favorite places I have been is Washington, D.C. And I just love DC. I love the history of DC. I love the buildings of DC. I love how it was laid out. And so I've been getting the DC architecture sets. Sitting in front of me, kind of all parted out, is the Lincoln Memorial. Normally, if you've watched our videos, you know that we unbox them, and then we build them, and then we review them. Well, I bought this set used because it's really hard to find. And I bought it used from a great store here locally called Bricks and Minifigs Plano. So if you're ever in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, please go check out Bricks and Minifigs Plano. They're an awesome store. Even if you're not in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, they will ship just about anywhere if you're willing to pay for the shipping. And they do a Cyber Fun Day every Monday night at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you're in a different time zone, you can kind of do the math, but 7 o'clock Central Time, every Monday night they do what is called Cyber Fun Day. And you can get some pretty good deals on some pretty amazing sets that have come into their store. That's where this set came from. I bought it from Cyber Fun Day, and I've been really looking forward to putting it together. It was actually together, and I took it all apart so that I could actually be the one that built it and not just have somebody else build it. Unfortunately, did not get a box with it, did not get instructions with it. So I've got a phone here for instructions. And because I'm by myself, I don't know how entertaining just me is going to be. If you've watched a lot of my videos, you know that Judah, my oldest son, is very entertaining. He watches a lot of YouTube. He gets a lot of ideas of what's entertaining and what's not entertaining. And he doesn't like it when I tell him that some things are not entertaining and that he needs to stop it. But he is the person that I talk to and bounce ideas off of and trivia and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know how well I'm going to do this on my own. If you've seen me with my younger son, my younger biological son, you know that there's a lot of pauses. Both my sons have autism. The younger one has a delay in processing the information back out. He processes it in just fine. It just takes him a while to respond. And so even when I'm building with him, it's a lot of fun because we're waiting for him to his response on things, and that's really cool. But now it's just me. And soon, and just kind of a preview, we have 3 new kids, and they're all deaf. And I'm going to be doing some building in sign language, which is really hard because sign language is with your hands. And guess what else you have to do with your hands? You have to build. So look forward to those. Those will be coming soon. Probably in about 2 months from this video coming out, we'll release our Versus Sign Language video. But lots of fun building with kids. But there are a few things that I just want to build just me. This is one of those things. There's a few other things that I have that I want to build just me. There's a lot of the idea sets that I have, Big Bang Theory, Friends, Flintstones, things like that, that I want to do kind of on my own without the kids because those aren't really kid shows. So I'm going to try this to make it a little bit more entertaining. What I did is, you can probably see that there's a big blue cabinet behind me. That's almost always there. So what I did is, on top of the cabinet, and you can probably see my hand in the bottom video, I stuck a second camera. And I'm going to try to do picture-in-picture so you can see the pieces a little bit better maybe. Just try it out, see how it goes. If it's horrible, then I'll never do it again. If it's amazing, then I'll do it every time. So if you like that, please let me know in the comments. That would be super, super helpful. Again, today, Lincoln Memorial, and I'm going, because I don't have the instructions, they're on this phone right here that you may or may not be able to see. And I'm going to talk about as much of the Lincoln Memorial as I know. If you're watching this, maybe you know more than me. I did start off saying that I have 3 deaf children that are going to be joining me soon. And one really cool thing about the Lincoln Memorial um, is that the man that designed the memorial, so not Abraham Lincoln himself, a lot of people get this confused, but the man that designed the memorial for the city of Washington, D.C., or the federal government, or whoever had it commissioned, had a sister who was deaf. And kind of as a tribute to her, he crafted Abraham Lincoln's hands on the memorial as he's sitting in the chair, with this hand doing this shape and this hand doing this shape. And you can go and you can see it. I've gone and I have seen it. And that happens to be an A in sign language and an L in sign language, which are Abraham Lincoln's initials. So he is essentially signing his name AL, which is just, really cool to me. Maybe not that cool to some of you. If you've never been to the Lincoln Memorial, I would highly suggest going. It is, I don't know if it's my favorite memorial in DC. Washington Monument's pretty cool, but it is a beautiful memorial. Just some really cool stuff. The writing on the wall is really cool. I have been twice. Once when I was about 16, and then again when I was about 20-ish, I would say. And so definitely one of my favorite places to go. I'm trying to think what else. I do the other 2 models that they have released that I have the newer updated White House, not the older White House, and then the Congressional building, the Congress building. And I have only been to the Capitol building once. I've never been inside, but I have been to the White House both times that I've been. Have not been inside. One of my biggest dreams is to go inside the White House, but I have been inside the Washington Memorial 2 different times, and it's just such a cool place. All of DC is cool. I love DC. I don't know that it would necessarily be a place that I would want to live, but to go on a vacation, to see everything. DC is one of those places where I feel like you can go multiple times and still not see everything. Like I said, I've been twice. I think I've seen maybe half of the Smithsonian museums. And those are really cool. My favorite one being the Air and Space Museum. Both times I've gone to the Air and Space Museum. Trying to think. I know I haven't been to modern art, which I know is a big one. And I wish that they would include, why don't we have a Washington Monument architecture set, or one of the Smithsonian buildings architecture set. I do know the modern art, which I have not been to, has a spot where you can stand and the wall splits your face like this and you're looking down 2 different sides of the building. And it's such a popular place to go and stand that the wall is actually discolored there from all the people touching their noses to it because our oil affects the rock. And so I have not gone and stood there, but how cool would that be as a Lego set to have? And that's such a cool little Easter egg that you could put into a Lego set. Like, here you go. Here is this museum with this discolored wall right here. I think that would be really cool. I'm trying to think. The cool thing about the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Memorial is they're connected by the mall, which, if you've never been to DC, is a fancy word for big long strip of grass, basically. And along the mall is several of the Smithsonian's. And then obviously you have the reflection pool for the Lincoln Memorial, which is not included in this set, but would have been really cool. Lots of amazing things have happened at the memorial. Obviously, Martin Luther King's rally and his famous "I Have a Dream" speech was done on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, with everyone kind of out on the reflection pool and stuff. That reflection pool is kind of deceiving. It's not very deep. I think at its deepest, it's like 12 inches deep. So people can actually, well, sometimes at some of the rallies there and stuff, depending on how many people show up, people will actually stand in the reflection pool because they don't have space, which I'm not a big fan of. I don't really want you stepping in the reflection pool, but I get it. I wouldn't be wanting to be standing on top of people either. So, just, I don't know, lots and lots of history, obviously, with these buildings and with this place. The whole town of DC was designed by Washington himself and laid out. He was and wasn't an architect. What's the word I'm looking for? It's a person that kind of goes out and measures stuff, and I can't think of the word off the top of my head. I don't know why. But that was kind of like a trade that he did. Obviously, he owned the farm with his wife, but he kind of married more into that. And obviously, he was in the military, but almost everyone was in the military at that point in time. So, just kind of, he did have a trade outside of the military and outside of owning the farm with his wife, and that surveyor, that's the word I'm looking for. He was a surveyor. And so he surveyed out the area. He got Maryland and Virginia to donate the land and it not be part of any state. And then he surveyed out the area and laid out the streets and the buildings, and they started construction on the White House and everything else that they built down there. He was, I think he was the only president not to live in the White House. There might have been another one because it did get burned down in the War of 1812. So, but he's kind of responsible for all of this. Now, obviously, I don't think he knew that they were going to put in all these monuments and stuff, but he obviously left space for things. Interestingly enough, there is a law that no building in Washington, D.C. is allowed to be bigger than the Washington Monument. And so the Capitol building, is a pretty, if you've never been there, it's a big building. And it sits kind of up on a hill, which is why they call it Capitol Hill, and you have to walk up these steps. And it has a statue on the top of it, but nothing's allowed to be taller than the Washington's memorial built thing. And so don't quote me on this, but I think it's like 6 inches shorter. Like they made it as close as they possibly could without making it taller, which is just crazy. If you've only ever seen the Lincoln Memorial or any of the other ones in movies or pictures, and you haven't seen them in person, they're huge. Like Lincoln himself, just sitting in that big old chair, I think I would come up to like his toe. Like his toes are probably taller than me, and I'm 6 foot tall. It's just a huge memorial. Sometimes I don't think you realize how big things are. Like until I saw the raising of the flag of Iwo Jima statue in Arlington Cemetery, I didn't think it was that big of a statue. And then you get there, and it is humongous. One of the people is probably 10 times life size. It is huge. And that may be an exaggeration. Probably not 10 times life size, but at least 3 or 4, if not more. That would be another good architecture set, is that statue. That would be really cool. Of course, it's war themed, and Lego doesn't necessarily, I don't know how they would feel about that. I don't know if they would do that or not. But the one thing that this little set is missing is the writing on the walls. As I was taking it apart, I was looking for it and it wasn't there, and I was kind of disappointed. but it's still, obviously it's really small. Um, and once I put it up next to like the White House and the Capitol building, it'll look really small because it's not, I mean, it's obviously smaller than those buildings, but it's not ridiculously smaller than those buildings like this little model is compared to those sets. Two of these together. Hopefully my big old head's not getting in the way of the back video. It probably is. Okay. And I kind of feel like I'm rambling, so I'm going to focus on the building just a little bit. 6 times, that's a lot. Okay. So right now I'm building the walls and I'm just using normal pieces here. These are 3x1s that are clicking together. Nothing special about them, no special writing or anything like that. But when you actually go to the memorial, there's quotes and names and all sorts of things inside the memorial. I don't know if any of you are big history buffs. My kids love, my younger son especially loves presidents. They're very interested in the presidents and who they are. I grew up loving history and things like that, so don't know like everything there is to know. This little guy, so this is supposed to be Abraham Lincoln. I feel like they could have done a better job on this. Just gonna say. Where was I? Oh, know quite a bit about Abraham Lincoln being from Texas. There's actually quite the conspiracy theory about John Wilkes Booth. If you don't know the name John Wilkes Booth was the person that assassinated Abraham Lincoln in Ford Theater. Ford Theater is another place that I've been to in DC that's really cool, that would make a cool architecture set. It is an operational theater. It's still operational to this day, which is really cool, but also means it's only open certain times. And inside Ford Theater, they still have up, they had like these tapestry things that were like, you see them a lot around 4th of July and Memorial Day and Labor Day and stuff. You know, they're kind of half circles and they're red, white, and blue, and they've got the stars on them. And that's what they had up for the president's visit to see the show that night, My American Cousin. And they're still hanging there to this day. And when John Wilkes Booth shot the president, he jumped out of the president's box onto the stage. And when he jumped, he had on spurs, and they got caught in that that hanging thing and tore it. So he kind of tore it on his way down, which then caused him to break his ankle, which completely messed up his escape plan and slowed him down dramatically. And eventually, the story goes that they caught him in a barn trying to hide out, and he wouldn't come out. And so they set the barn on fire trying to force him out, and he still wouldn't come out. And one of the army people that was there was kind of looking through like the slats in the barn in between the wood and saw the guy moving around and fired and shot and killed him. So then they got the fire out and they went inside and he was dead. So that's the official story, if you've never heard it. And that was kind of the end of John Wilkes Booth. And then there was lots of co-conspirators and people that helped him escape. There was a doctor that helped him escape that really didn't know what was going on, just knew that he knew who he was. He was an actor. He was well known, and helped kind of mend his leg a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. And they end up convicting the doctor of treason, and that's kind of been one of those things in history that it's always kind of been like, shouldn't they have done that? Shouldn't they have done that? Kind of thing. But after he is killed, these kind of big conspiracy rumors kind of start up of, did they actually have John Wilkes Booth? was it actually the guy? And you can look these up. They're not made up. I mean, they're conspiracy theories, so I don't know that there's necessarily a way to prove them right or wrong, but after John Wilkes Booth escaped, there is a thing that said that he was never in that barn and that he had escaped and made his way south through Virginia and into the southern states, and eventually finds his way. He marries a woman, I can't remember her name, and she eventually figures out who he really is and not who he's pretending to be. And she's going to turn him in, so he leaves her and runs away and actually ends up in Fort Worth, Texas, which is where I am from, and marries another lady here and lives out the rest of his life in Fort Worth, Texas. And on his deathbed, confesses to his family that he is really John Wilkes Booth and that he has been hiding all this time. And they actually do something really weird at that point in time. I don't know if somebody buys his deceased body or what, but he ends up being mummified and on display in a museum here in Texas for a long, long time. And I think he eventually had moved away from Texas and moved to Kansas, I believe. And I think this body ends up being on display in Kansas for whatever reason. Where it is now, I don't know. But that story is out there that he survived. He lived out the rest of his natural life, died an old man. And there's actually a picture of the guy before he passes away. And they've actually gone and done like aging techniques to an old John Wilkes Booth photo and said, you know what, this really could be what John Wilkes Booth would look like if he lived to be an old man. So I don't know what to make of it. It's an interesting story for sure. Was it John Wilkes Booth? I don't think so. I think that they probably had their man and they knew that they had their man. But definitely an interesting theory about the Lincoln assassination that still kind of runs out there to this day. So I guess conspiracy theories not just for aliens. Oh my. So many dots for this little set. I'm worried about stability here. Right. Did not get that one. Okay. Maybe I should put this down. Let's see. Another funny story I don't know how funny it is, of Abraham Lincoln, his Gettysburg Address, which is obviously a famous speech now. I think just about every kid has heard 7 years ago. This country was founded by our forefathers. When he gave that speech, he had, at the time, it was very popular and you were considered a very good speaker if you were very long-winded. So the more you could talk and the longer you could talk, kind of the better professional speaker you were. And so he was on after a professional speaker. And this professional speaker had talked for a very long time. So this professional speaker had talked for a very long time, was very good at his job of talking. And after he was done, it was the president's turn. But everybody needed a break because this guy had talked for so long. Understandably, if somebody had talked for 2 hours or whatever the case may be, I would probably need to go to the bathroom or do something else. They didn't have a pause button back then. And so but then it's the president's turn to give up to stand up and give the Gettysburg Address. And it's not very long. It's only like 16 minutes long. And he stands up, he gives his little speech. Nobody claps, nobody says anything. And he thinks that his speech is a complete and utter failure. And so he gets up when he's done giving his speech, and he throws the speech in the trash. And that would have been the end of the story. Nobody would have ever heard the Gettysburg Address, except that there was a reporter that was there, and he goes, you know what? I better know what the president said. And so he goes and he gets the speech out of the trash and sends it in to his paper that publishes it the next day. And everybody reads it in the paper the next day, and that's where the big success of the Gettysburg Address came from. So not a success the day that he gave it. He thought it was a complete and total failure. But the next day, when the world read it in the paper, they were blown away by the Gettysburg Address. And now it is one of the most famous speeches by an American president. But at the time, poor President Lincoln thought he had failed at giving his speech. One of two very famous speeches by President Lincoln, the other one being obviously the Emancipation Proclamation that freed the slaves. Sometimes I think that people think that they're the same speech, but they are most definitely not. They were done at two different times at two different places, but both very impactful speeches, very important speeches. What am I building? Try not to lean over the model. I'm doing a bad job of it. Scoot that there so maybe you guys can see it in the picture a little bit better. Okay. Looks like I'm almost done. Got clear pieces. So normally when I build a set, I just kind of dump everything out and go for it. But when I take apart a set, I definitely keep the pieces organized, which is why you saw this today, that it was all organized. I'm not convinced it makes it go any faster. I know there are a lot of people that are. I am not one of those people, but maybe it does. I don't know. Just don't know. Okay. Maybe this is like a skyline above him. Okay. Definitely a little skylight. Okay. There. It's gonna go there. Okay, that's gonna set down in there like that. And there you have it. That is the Lincoln Memorial. Here it is. I don't know if you can see Lincoln sitting inside of there or not, but you can easily take the roof off and look inside. So I love the Lincoln Memorial. I do not think that this set does it justice. I think that they definitely could have done a lot more. It could have been bigger. The Abraham Lincoln little micro figure was definitely a big disappointment. His chair is not really a chair. He doesn't have legs. He doesn't have anything. But all in all, a really cool set, a pretty cool representation of the Lincoln Memorial. Looks like it could go right on a penny right now. So that is it for me, all alone. Hopefully you enjoyed this journey with me. And until next time, happy building, everyone.